Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Back in September, Wizards of the Coast released an updated version of the Dungeon Master screen, the DM screen reincarnated. So I did my review of that, and it actually got me thinking about other products that Wizards of the Coast have put out that may need some sort of contemporary update. And for the most part, everything that they've done so far, 5th edition, has been fine. However, I do think that it may be time to release a brand new version of the D&D starter set. Now, I recently also re-reviewed the starter set because the initial one that I did was, to put it mildly, it was pretty harsh, and I feel kind of bad about the way that I expressed my displeasure with this product, and actually really come to enjoy this. In fact, this is actually a second copy that I have that I got for pretty cheap, and it's something I'm going to keep sealed on my shelf. So I actually have two of these, so my opinions have definitely changed. Also, I think that the Lost Mine of Phandelver is a great adventure for, especially for something that comes in a starter set product. So why am I thinking that the starter set needs to be redone or updated? So there's a couple of different reasons. The first is the original starter set was released prior to the 5th edition D&D rulebooks. So it came out during the time where the only other product available along with it was the Basic Rules PDF. And even the basic rules have kind of undergone some revisions and updates and things of that nature. Like, in fact, I think at the time there was only the player's version. I don't even think there was a DM's version at the time. I can't remember properly. It was 3 years ago now. But with that in mind, the classes in there are basically, the cleric, rogue, wizard, and two different types of fighters, which is fine, but one of the fighters would be better off being ranger. Now, the reason that I think that an update would be great for the starter set is I think it would be time to have a starter set that's actually gives you a tutorial on how to create characters. So one of the complaints that I actually had somebody make about the current starter set was that it's not necessarily as friendly for new players as one would think. And I'm not entirely sure I agree with that, but I can see it from certain points of views. I think it would be great to have an updated starter set that comes with a handful of blank character sheets and just some information on different classes. So, for example, with D&D Beyond now, even the free service allows you to make characters from the player's handbook, including, druids, bards, barbarians. All the classes that aren't actually featured in the basic rule set are now available to be made with the D&D Beyond product, even their free service, which has like ads and limited character slots and things of that nature. So, if you release a brand new starter set, you can gear it again towards newer players. And the player's book, instead of trying to be something that's essentially what the original intent was, to have the starter set player's book be something that could be useful as a resource at the table, which is great if you're only using the basic rules, to have something in print that you can flip through then and there. But as it stands now, with the player's handbook and stuff being out, odds are most people that are playing 5th edition have a player's handbook. I mean, myself personally, I have 3 copies of the player's handbook for use for other people. But anyway, so the player's handbook is something that is very easily, commonly available. So having the new starter set could have a tutorial on how to make characters using the point buy system, the standard array, or even the dice rolling method if they wanted to include all 3. Go through each of the individual steps, you have a few backgrounds, and since you're only going for a few levels of progression, you can actually include pretty much all the player's handbook classes, as well as a few of the extra races like the half-orc and maybe the gnome, half-elf. Even if you wanted to include all the races, you could certainly do that. Have a 32 to 35 page booklet that just goes over the basics for the races, each of the classes, level progression from 1st to 5th level, and then something, saying, if you purchase this, then you may be interested in the player's handbook. And if they even really wanted to, with D&D Beyond now being a thing, they could even provide some sort of like discount code that if you go on D&D Beyond, maybe get like 15-20% off of a digital version of the player's handbook. But that's, again, kind of going a little bit off of what I was originally talking about. But having that on there, I think would be a great way to, again, bring new people into the game and help new people understand how to make the characters. So having it broken down step by step, which the player's handbook does, but to actually have it there in front of you, I think is something that would be pretty useful. The 4th edition D&D Essential Starter Set actually did have a character generating tutorial, which was kind of neat because it was actually in the form of like a choose your own adventure type of thing. Now, I'm not saying that that's the way that they should go, but again, it shows that starter sets can have character creation actually built into it and still be perfectly fine. The other reason that I think it may be time for a new starter set is the fact of the matter is that this one here is now over 3 years old. And really, the only thing that it really foreshadowed as far as upcoming adventures or campaigns were concerned was the idea of the Cult of the Dragon having sort of a bit part where they're trying to get this green dragon to join them. So that's something that's, you know, going back to the Tyranny of Dragons storyline, which in of itself is over 3 years old now. In fact, I think we're coming on the 3-year anniversary of the release of the second book, Rise of Tiamat. So the fact of the matter is that the story elements in Lost Mine of Phandelver are sort of, unfortunately, a little bit outdated. And the other thing about that adventure is very few, if any, of the Britain campaigns that followed actually took advantage of the fact that the starter set existed. And to me, that's kind of a major problem and something that I think a brand new starter set could easily address. So, for example, the Tyranny of Dragons storyline, which came out immediately after the starter set, starts with brand new characters at first level and a completely different part of the Sword Coast region, meaning that it's not necessarily feasible for the players to go through the starter set and then play through the events of Hoard of the Dragon Queen. Especially since Hoard of the Dragon Queen only goes to 7th level, and the players should be 5th level by the time they're done the starter set, meaning that they're missing out on, you know, 2/3 of the book. And you can only really get them to do the last little bit, and you have to find a way to sort of make that work. Not that it's impossible, but it just isn't a seamless transition, which is something that I think that the first campaign to come out after the starter set really should have allowed something for. And it's just disappointing that it didn't. Now, the next couple of campaigns that have come out, Prince of the Apocalypse and Curse of Strahd, for example, start their main story's progression at 3rd level, which means it, again, doesn't line up with the starter set. The starter set brings your characters usually up to about 5th level by the time that you've completed it. So those adventures don't make use of the starter set at all. Out of the Abyss starts player characters at 1st level. Now, there may be an argument to be made that you could have them go through the story starter set. They do encounter a drow there. Maybe they're captured by the drow after that, but you still have to kind of make some changes to a few different things, and by that point, there's a very good chance that the characters may lose all of their equipment, which is kind of disappointing. So it's something that, you know, you can do, but again, it involves a lot more work, and you're still running an adventure that's not going to be as easily counterbalanced as it is if you're just running it with brand new 1st level characters. Other than that, we have Storm King's Thunder, which is actually the only of the 5th edition D&D campaigns released so far. Actually, I'll take that back. You have Storm King's Thunder and Tomb of Annihilation, sort of, but Storm King's Thunder, the main story starts with the player characters at 5th level. That's the only one. Now, Prince of the Apocalypse does mention something if you ran through the starter set and ways that you can alter the adventure to make it fit, but Storm King's Thunder is the only one that really says, hey, if you run through the starter set, you can easily, without any work, just put the characters right into the main story for Storm King's Thunder. In fact, one of the 3 giant attacks that's supposed to start off the main story takes place in a region around where Lost Mine of Phandelver takes place. So again, makes it for a more seamless transition. Tomb of Annihilation does have some notes for starting with 5th level characters, but you also end up not really, by the book's definition, giving them experience rewards until they reach the Forbidden City of Amu. So a lot of the exploration that they do, any of the encounters or things that they do in Port Nyanzaru, they don't get anything for. And some of those earlier encounters may be something that's just a little too easy for them, which again doesn't really make for a fun game. And you know, again, it's easy to increase encounter difficulty or decrease encounter difficulty, and as someone who's been DMing for nearly 20 years, I can certainly understand that, and I do it on a regular basis. But again, the starter set is geared towards new players, and new players who want to do one of the main stories that have come out after that are going to have some difficulty because there's really only one adventure that easily incorporates the starter set into it. So I think for those reasons alone, it's time for a new starter set. Now, the best thing to do with this new starter set is to allow the players allow the DMs to run adventures that have the players finish their character progression at either 3rd or 5th level. So I actually have 2 adventures in the actual starter set itself. One of which takes the players from 1st to 3rd, and it could be sort of more of a simple introductory type of adventure, and have a second adventure that they can do that is loosely connected, meaning that if they complete the first quest, that takes them to 3rd level, because let's just say you want to run Prince of the Apocalypse as your next follow-up adventure, then you can do that, take the player characters to 3rd level, and have that 3rd level, or 1st through 3rd level adventure wrap itself up to the point where it doesn't feel like there's loose ends or anything major that would keep the player characters distracted or away from Prince of the Apocalypse if you wanted to do that next, or even Curse of Strahd. Now, if you want to run Storm King's Thunder as your next one, then you have that second quest, that second option that they could get. Now, it could be something completely separate, or there could be an element from the introductory adventure that never really gets explored in that adventure. Not necessarily something that feels like a big crucial plot thread that they have to follow, but just something that after they complete that first quest, then maybe they can look into something else. But have it separate enough that, you know, when you complete that 1st through 3rd level adventure, you don't feel like you haven't finished yet, and then allow it to more seamlessly integrate into other campaigns. So basically, in conclusion, a new starter set has the ability to do several things. Number one, you can have a tutorial thing in there where you can let the players build their own characters. And the best part is that, you know, with the information that's contained within, let's just say you even leave out the dice rolling method altogether, then you could actually have an advert in the back saying that, you know, you can take your brand new characters that you've created out of this starter set and take them to D&D Adventurers League, because they're made with the point buy or the stat array, and they're legal for organized play. Have it so that instead of rolling the dice, you know, you're taking the set amounts, or, you know, have sort of like a little sidebar that says, you know, variant rules for home play. So you could introduce the 46 method there and the hit die, like rolling the actual hit points for the characters. But if by default you can have it geared towards making this available for people that want to take the characters that they make and go to D&D Adventurers League. Again, having just 1st through 5th level abilities for the classes isn't necessarily going to take up a whole lot of room. Now, you probably still limit them to a single of the class archetypes that you normally choose at 3rd level, which, you know, is fine because it is a starter product. But it's something that you could easily do. So even if you don't run the adventures themselves, you have at least a tutorial on how to make characters, a few character sheets provided, and a set of dice that someone can, you know, take with them and go to Adventures League, start a brand new 1st level character. Or if you're doing home games, or if you're doing Adventures League that's using the hardcover adventures, you can have it built in so that for the campaigns that start with 3rd level, you can get your characters to 3rd level and complete a nice short little story in that process. And then if you want to have one that starts at 5th level, then you can do the same thing. Run them through the first scenario, run them through the second scenario, and then they're ready to go on to Storm King's Thunder or other adventures, you know, anything else that would basically have them at 5th level. So that's kind of my opinion, and I think that it's something that could work quite well. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen multiple starter sets in previous editions. In 3.5, there were 2004 and a 2006 starter set. I think they called it the basic game at that point, but they actually ended up doing 2 of them. 4th edition had its own starter set, and then D&D Essentials had a starter set. So it's something that I think could be done, and I think it's time. As much as I love The Lost Mine of Phandelver, and as much as I've come to appreciate the current starter set that we have, there is room for improvement, and making it so that the players can make their characters, have expanded options that aren't just related to the strict basic rules, and having multiple adventures that you could run that can make it more seamless for them to transition from the starter set into the home or the hardcover adventures, I think is something that would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, I just want to I just wanted to get that out there, sort of my thoughts or something that I'd like to see. But what do you guys think? Do you think that perhaps something like that would be a viable option? Do you think that Wizards of the Coast could benefit from releasing a brand new starter set? And if there's something that, I mentioned that you're not a big fan of, like the character builder or whatever, let me know. I'd like to know what your guys' thoughts are. Is it time for a new starter set? And how should Wizards of the Coast go about making it if they do end up having a new one come out? So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.